See, Aiden, how long can I leave a panel with just base coat before having to scuff and clear? Man, I would say 2 days. So you got like a good 24-hour window to just put clear coat on it. Sorry, I got this big helicopter flying above the house. You got a good 24 hours, okay? Within 24 hours, you really don't have to scuff it down. You could just tack it, right? And then spray your clear coat on it. If you're going to be getting into that 48-hour, 36 to 48-hour window, then what I would do is get some 800 grit just on a little scuff pad, and just like scuff it up. A foam scuff pad, something soft where you're not going to really gouge it, but just a light scuff. You could do it by hand. You could even put it on a machine if you want, but just super lightly. Okay. You don't have to take the texture of the base coat down flat. You don't have to do any of that, but I would just scuff it and then give it one more coat of base coat, and then you could be ready for clear coat. All right. It's not needed to go 2 more coats over that. You just scuff it lightly, with 800 grit, and then put a nice coat of base coat on it, and then you're good to go with clear coat. Hopefully that answered your question. Let me know if that helps. Rich Reese says, have you used this new super build poly primer that's added pink guide coat? I have not. So it just seems like another product, because they have like body fillers like that where it goes on one color, and then when it dries a different color. You can kind of see that it's ready. And this is the same type of thing. If you sand it, you'll basically see another color. I guess that helps, but I was never a big guide coat fan unless I was doing heavy body work on a complete quarter panel or a door, a big flat spot, because you could literally just use your primer as a guide coat. And if you need a little bit of help, you could just get a little flat 1K primer, black, or just even some, enamel flat, and then just spray it. Some people like the powder. I'm not really a big fan of the guide coat powder. I just think it's not for me, So I would say if you want to try it. Yeah, polyurethane filler build primer is really thick. You usually need a 2.0 or a 2.2 tip size to blow it out. I don't like them. I think they're too thick. I like to get my body work down to 80 grit, for basically shaping. And then I'll go down to 150 to 220 before I prime. And regular power tops. Expensive. Yeah. So a regular filler primer, 2K filler primer, is all I need when I do body work. And I break down, my whole body work method in Learn Auto Body and Paint VIP. A lot of guys have their own ways. And then, if you decide to learn from somebody, you just follow. If you're a total newbie just starting out, my recommendation is follow somebody that you like, know, and trust, and follow the way they do body work. And then eventually you're going to come up with your own little shortcuts or tweaks, or figure out, I kind of want to modify this, or maybe I don't have to use a poly build. Maybe I'll just do more body work, get it down finer before I do my 2K filler primer. So I have my methods that I think are that save on money and that also save on time, and they've been working for years. And that's what I teach and Learn Auto Body VIP. And if I find a method or a product that I like, I will, let you guys know and update my members. So you use much etch or more epoxy? Does it depend on job? I use a lot of epoxy, especially over metal. Etching is I don't know, I think old schoolish. I mean, the new epoxies now are pretty much all you need going over metal if you're going over metal work and body filler. Because sometimes you're going to have metal work with raw body filler that's shaped. You could do epoxy right over that. Okay. Let that set up for about, give it a good 90 minutes to dry. Longer the better. 2-3 hours, even better. And then you can go a 2K filler primer right on top of that without sanding. Okay. Then you can cut that. You can cut it down with a 240, depending on how how thick you lay that on. So yeah, slow drying epoxy. Yeah, well, I'm not really fond of slow dry unless it's clear coats. I like to let all my clear coats slow dry so it gives it time to flow out and harden. But normally primers, epoxy, all the hardeners that I use and activators, I like to use medium. Base coats I'll use medium most of the time, even on a complete paint job, because that's enough. You don't want to use fast. Medium's good. Slow, I think, just takes too much time for base coat. I think base coat can be allowed to dry a little bit quicker. So I use medium across all of my base coats on single panel jobs, blending jobs, complete paint jobs. How do you feel about water-based paint when it comes to metallics? Honestly, I mean, I still shoot with a lot of solvents. A friend of mine at the body shops, they use water-based paints a lot more than I do, and it's pretty much the same thing. It just takes longer to dry. So, I mean, as long as you're not shooting it on too thick, there's no issues. But if you're laying your base coat with waterborne and you don't know how to spray correctly and you're laying it on too thick, it's going to run a lot. It's going to run and sag a lot easier, and you're never supposed to run or sag with base coat. But waterborne takes a little bit longer to set up and dry. So that's the only thing. Just be careful of that, and don't lay too much of a thick coat when it comes to base coats with waterborne. Better off doing three medium coats than two medium wet coats. Okay. Alex says, I have old paint sanded down and I don't want to go to bare metal. The whole panel just to fill the exposed metal is what? I have old paint sanded down. I don't want to go to bare metal. The whole panel, I don't want to go to just to fill the exposed metal there is now. Alex, I'm a little confused. If you don't want to go to bare metal, you don't have to, depending on the paint condition. If the paint adhesion to the metal is flaky, then go all the way down. If your paint adhesion to the primer and to the metal, whatever you see exposed, because as you sand, you're going to see basically a feathering of your coats. If it's pretty much still has a good seal and a good adhesion to it, then you could put 2K filler primer or an epoxy filler on top of that. Okay, and just get it covered and then use that as a foundation to block it down, put 2K filler primer on it, block it down, and go over it and paint it, basically paint it. You can put sealer on it or you don't have to, because 2K filler prime is a good foundation base coat, foundation coat to put paint over. Either it's single stage paints that you're going to be doing or base coat clear coat. So there you go. If you're down to metal and you're sanding and you got paint flaking off or chipping, you got bad adhesion between those, then take it down to metal, and then epoxy prime the whole thing. So anyway, hopefully that makes sense, Alex. This says, can you paint on top of chrome? Yes, absolutely you can. What I like to do, if you're painting over chrome bumpers like these classic cars, I don't plan on doing the Chevelle bumpers chrome, but if you got metal chrome or plastic chrome plated, you can sand them down with anywhere from 80 grit to 150 grit. Get the scuff marks in, okay, and then you could just straight 2K filler prime right on top of it and sand it down with 400, get it nice and smooth, and paint it. The other thing you could do if you want to go the extra mile, spend a little bit more time and money, get it down with 80 grit or 150 grit. Okay, either of those, depending on the condition, because some metals, if it's metal, you're going to have a little bit of rust, right? Like little rust spots and pinholes and whatnot. Okay, surface rust that you're going to sand down. You might have a little bit of craters. Then you're going to basically put epoxy primer on it, 2 coats, pretty medium wet epoxy on it. Let that set up for about 2 hours. And then put 2 coats of 2K filler primer on top of that. Let that sit up, block it out flat, and you're ready for base coat, clear coat, or single stage enamel. That's how you paint chrome. I mean, I would show you guys an example on this Chevelle, but I'm not sure if I want to paint. I'm not sure if I want to paint my chrome on this Chevelle. I plan on painting it. We'll see what happens this year. I'm not 100% yet. I got somebody who gave me an offer that I can't refuse on this car, and I'm thinking of selling it. I got way too many cars. I got way too many projects. So anyway, that's my answer with chrome. And the surface under the hood and also the sides of the doors is difficult to have access, even opening doors. Um, Basically, you just sand it down, you get in there and you paint it. Or you could take the trunk and hood off, flip it over, put them on stands and paint them like that. You just, whatever works for you. I've painted, you know, door jambs under the trunk, under the hood, under the trunks of all kinds of cars with the parts on the car. You just mask it up and paint it, sand it, make sure you sand it, you prep it, and you paint it. If you want to take them off, you can take them off. So you'd either, I don't know what you're doing, restoring a classic or whatever, but you might be painting, the outside might be painting, but so you'd have to basically mask it up so you don't get overspray going around and sticking to it, right? So yeah, thinking about spraying some black wrap on chrome. Yeah, you could do that. You could even test it out using Plasti Dip. Pretty good stuff. You guys liking this so far? I'm glad. Okay, thanks. Do I have to spray it the same day, or can I do the inner parts and then the exterior next day? It's a single stage on a classic car. Yeah, I would do it. You would have to do it the next day, right? Because if you have a part off of a car and you're doing the underside, you can't flip it over unless it's dry, unless you could hang it somehow where you can hit both sides. But if I'm painting a hood or a trunk, I want to make sure it's laying down like that. I don't want to be hanging this thing, right, and then painting the hood when it's hanging both sides. It's prone to more runs. If you're going to be painting a hood, this is the way to do it, because you can lay it on really thick and it'll flow out. You're not going to have any runs. It's hard to run on a hood, unless you're going super crazy and you just run it around here, where it kind of curves down. But yeah, a lot of people get runs. And guys, check out radspaintformula.com to avoid all of that and to paint like a pro every time. I took a lot of time to create that training. It's a 5-video training series. We're going to call it a day at about 27 minutes today. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Peace. Don't forget to get your free training at radspaintformula.com.